Record. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Emily Gernaat, and welcome to Pink Power Team Call. I'm excited to get into it with you guys tonight. We're talking about stability and balance, kind of the difference between the two, what you really want to be striving for and why, and how it plays into not just your business, but your life in general. I wanted to start with just kind of defining what those things are. So stability is an object or structure not likely to give way or overturn, firmly fixed. Balance is an even distribution of weight, enabling someone or something to remain upright and steady. So they're pretty different, but sometimes they can kind of get confused. Picture a paddle board in the ocean. Has anybody ever been paddleboarding? So I haven't personally. It looks super hard, but you've got this long board and you're trying to stand up while the waves are going. And if you don't have like super clear water and everything stable underneath you, it's really hard to do. So imagine the difference, like trying to balance on a foundation, the ocean that's moving underneath you, versus just putting that paddleboard on dry land. If it's on dry land, you can just step up on it and it's no big deal. That's the difference of balance and stability. It's what's underneath it, right? So stability is the foundation underneath balance. And that's an important distinction. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of backstory to why this is important to me personally. I grew up in a household that was very unstable. I won't get into too many details on that, but the feeling was instability. It was unpredictability, chaos, things like that. And so I had a deep desire for stability. It grew in me because of those circumstances. But also growing up in chaos and instability, that's all I knew. And I kept perpetuating that in my life as well, because I didn't know any different. I didn't have perspective on how to create stability without having experienced it myself. So that led me to my 20s. So as an adult, I like to call the decade of my 20s the hot dumpster fire years of my life. It was really a mess. Things were crazy, but yet I still had this yearning and this desire for stability. And so later into my 20s, I got into like personal development, started reading a lot, listening to podcasts. This was before Plexus came in on the scene too. And I was learning a lot about how to develop myself, how to create a more peaceful life, things like that. And it seemed like the buzz at that time was all about balance. It was like, if you just do yoga every day, if you pray every day, if you set boundaries, if you just keep things balanced, like that's what makes life great. And so I remember like emphasizing those things in my life and trying to create balance, so to speak, allotting certain times for certain things in my life. There's a lot of talk about work-life balance, healthy lifestyle balance, home life balance. But what I personally found is that balance is a luxury for people who already have a stable foundation. And that's not something I had. I didn't have the luxury of a stable foundation at that time. And so things were different for me. I had to go to work on creating my own stability and my own foundation first. So I was in the gym yesterday and I was doing a stability ball exercise. And some of the stuff was running through my mind when I was doing that too. I don't know if you guys have done that type of workout, but all I was trying to do was a plank, but having my arms like on the stability ball. And all I had to do was count to 60 seconds doing this workout. And by the end of it, I was like drenched in sweat. My heart rate was up. Every muscle in my body was tense because I was trying to balance myself on this ball that was unstable beneath me. And so it just created all this tension and friction, which is what I wanted for a workout, but that's not what we want in our life. It creates fatigue, similar to what happens in your life when you're trying to keep all the things balanced perfectly. You also can't spring forward from a stability ball. Imagine trying to jump off of a stability ball. You're just going to send that thing sailing out from underneath you and fall flat on your face. It's similar when your foundation is shaking. You don't have a stable foundation. You're trying to balance everything. You can't spring forward from that very well either. But imagine yourself with a firm foundation under your feet. Imagine a solid floor. Imagine standing shoulder width apart, your knees slightly bent. This is like a power stance. You can do anything from that position. You can dodge things. You can catch somebody. You can pull somebody up. You can do a lot from that position because things are stable underneath you and you have the power back in your hands. When you have a firm foundation, you are poised for growth and impact. So what is it that makes up a firm foundation? I wrote out 5 different things, not in any particular order. They may be in a different order for you. This is just kind of on the paper how it is. Number 1, financial stability, relationship stability, habits, health and wellness, and values and beliefs. Those are the things that make up a firm foundation. And if any one of those things is shaky, the whole thing feels more shaky. So kind of back to my story a little bit about where I was in my 20s and when Plexus came in the scene. I had just turned 30 years old, entering a new era of my life, trying to make some changes. And Plexus was the opportunity to create financial stability. So that was the first thing in my little stability foundation that I went to work on. At the time or prior to that, I had spent a lot of time looking for stability in external things. So things that I couldn't control, things like other people, my spouse or relationships, jobs, churches, achievement. I attached stability to other people and other things that were out of my control. And so Plexus was a way to kind of take back that control and to start to create a firm foundation. So it was the opportunity to create a foundation starting with financial stability. I didn't know it at the time, but it was about to throw a lot of things in my life way off balance. This was the start of a time in my life where I was like, holy moly, I've never worked this hard in my entire life. I was riding horses and working at a job at a ranch for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, working Plexus 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, in between and around and, into the night, early in the morning, whatever it took. I was way off balance, right? Like all these things were going crazy and I was working like crazy. But it's worth it because it was creating the foundation. So things go off balance sometimes when you are solidifying parts and elements of your foundation, and it's an important phase that you have to get through. Focused energy gives you a better return on investment than dispersed energy. We tend to want to just disperse our energy into all the little buckets: home life, work life, relationships, friendships, free time, all these things. We want to just kind of like divide up our time evenly, but that's kind of an illusion. It's not an actual thing. Like creating perfect little buckets of time for all those things isn't actually that helpful because it's not what you need in different seasons. So in that season of my life, financial stability was of the utmost importance because it was the thing that was the shakiest in my life at that time. Think about how you can use a magnifying glass to focus the power of the sun, the light, the energy from the sun, into a laser beam of light onto something. You can burn a hole through something with that focused energy and that focused light. You're taking dispersed light, condensing it down, and focusing it on one area, and you're starting a fire. You can't do the same thing with a lamp. One little lamp lighting up a small area, dimly lit, it's balanced light, but it's not going to start a fire. There will be seasons of your life that require that kind of energy and focus to create stability. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about how this plays into your business stability. But first, I have a question. Has anyone ever sat on a one-legged stool? No, that's a pogo stick. Has anybody ever sat on a two-legged stool? Probably not. That would be a ladder, right? Lean that thing against the wall. You guys might know where I'm going with this, but sometimes I don't think we say it bluntly enough. If you're sitting on a one-legged stool or a two-legged stool, you don't have a business, you have a house of cards. This is why it is important, it's vital to be actively finding, developing new leaders on your team. Because if you have one person, two people, three people to link arms with, that is a blessing, it's a privilege, it's an honor to work with those people. But it puts you in a bad position if you don't start building out wider. The reason why isn't necessarily financial, because sometimes you can build a lot of financial stability with one or two people that are all in. But if your paycheck depends on just one or two people, then it puts you in a bad position as their leader. You can't show up the best for those people if you're in that position. The truth is, your paycheck is 100% up to you. It doesn't matter if you are silver all the way to diamond, your paycheck is up to you. That's your opportunity to take ownership and say, if I want to make more money, then I have to recruit more people. And the reason why is because people on your team, leaders on your team, will go through different seasons of their life where they are working on different parts of their foundation. So think back to when my first year in Plexus, when everything felt like it was on fire, momentum was like insane, it was hard to keep up with, business was growing like mad. That season of my life was massive growth and momentum. And I have people on my team who have had moments of that time too, months, years at a time, but then other people aren't. So it balances things out when you have people in different seasons of life, different seasons of working on those foundations. It puts you in a better position as a leader to be able to help and support them where they're at and not rely on them to create your paycheck. So it's important to build out wide and to develop more and more and more leaders, and to be actively looking for more and more leaders to work with, so that you can show up as a leader for those people in a way where you're not relying on them, you're supporting them. It gives you the ability to pass on more vision, passion, belief, security, no matter what season they're in. Their season, however yucky it might be or great it might be, doesn't affect you the same way when you build out wide like that. You're not coming from a place of scarcity, fear, control, frustration, because the goal as a leader should be to love and to serve people and to help them to develop their potential. And you can't do that when your entire paycheck revolves around one or two people. So circling back just a minute to the foundational elements, because these are the things you're going to be working on with people in your downline too. Financial stability, relationship stability, habits, health and wellness, values and beliefs. Zoom out on your life a little bit and just kind of look at those elements individually. What is it that's the most pressing right now? What requires the most energy and intention right now? What will give you the greatest degree of stability to put you in your power stance? Maybe for you, it's not finances. Maybe you're not in a financial crisis like I was. Maybe your marriage is suffering. Maybe your relationships with your kids are suffering. And in turn, that affects your business as well. Because none of these parts are isolated from each other. They all affect each other, right? The same way that creating financial stability affected all the other elements of my life and allowed me to create momentum and more stability in those areas, it's going to be the same way, whether it's like you're struggling with your health and wellness. Maybe things are really out of balance or really unstable there. And that's affecting everything else, your ability to work, your ability to show up for relationships. They're not isolated from each other. They're all affected by each other. Whatever it is, you will likely need to pour a disproportionate amount of energy into that one thing to solidify your foundation and give you a base to create momentum in other areas. So I wrote down a few action steps. I went through this super fast, you guys. Hopefully it's sinking in because, oh yeah, we're only 18 minutes in. Okay, so action steps. Rate yourself on the 5 foundational elements on a scale of 1 to 10 and discuss it with your sponsor. Just start kind of opening that dialogue. Where are you at with some of these things? What's like the most pressing? What feels like is out of reach? Just start talking about it. You don't have to solve all the world's problems with all of these things all at once. It's just starting the conversation and maybe bringing awareness to something that needs a little attention, right? So again, that's financial stability, relationship stability, habits, health and wellness, values and beliefs. And then determine which area is the most pressing and go to work on that. Whether that's reading books, listening to podcasts, talking to somebody about it, talking to a counselor, talking to a financial advisor, like pick some action steps that you can take in that area so that you can start getting the ball moving on creating stability there. Then define what stability looks and feels like to you. Going back to my story a little bit, I didn't know what stability felt like. I didn't know how to create it because I didn't know what it looked like or what it felt like. So I kind of had to look around towards people who had what I wanted. I found people that had stable marriages, that had financial peace. I found people that were living the lifestyle I wanted or had the businesses that I wanted. And I just like attached myself to them. I would ask questions. I would follow what they did. I would see what they'd post on social media. I'd read anything that they wrote. So if it was authors or podcasters or whatever, I would consume the things that they put out there because those were the people that I wanted to emulate. If they had stability in an area that I didn't, then I would just attach myself to them until I could get a grasp on what that was, what it looked like. So define what that looks like to you. Think of people that you want to emulate, and then put words to it. You know, I wrote down a few examples: consistency, autonomy, freedom, predictability, strength. Those are things that I think of when I think of stability. And how does it feel to you? Does it feel peaceful? Does it feel like a relief, a weight off your shoulders? Does it feel empowering, like you can really move and you can really do some stuff when you've got stability? Does it feel like a hug because you're stable in your relationships and, you know, it's a good, warm, fuzzy feeling? What does it feel like to you? And the reason why defining that is important is because you need a vision of what you're going for here. Because otherwise you might be inadvertently creating chaos instead of stability. If you're used to working in chaos, if you're used to operating at that level, it's a groove you can get into and it can be hard to get out of until you take the time and the intentionality to redefine what it is that you're actually after. And then number 3, the third action step is just to let go of the illusion of balance. Balance is just, honestly, I feel like it's a buzzword that a lot of people in the personal development space created to speak to people that were frustrated with imbalanced feeling in their life. They talk a big talk about balance, but it's not reality. Putting the exact same amount of energy into all kinds of different areas and just trying to disperse your energy across the board in your life won't get you the results you're actually looking for. If you want stability, if you want to be empowered, if you want to really make progress and momentum in certain areas, then it takes a disproportionate amount of energy in those areas to create momentum. And then that helps to create stability and balance throughout your life across the board. So, all right, that's it, you guys. I feel like that went super fast, but hopefully it was helpful. I appreciate you guys getting on, and I will talk to you later. Have a good night.